Okay, so last time on Gran Turismo 4, we did the tuning car Grand Prix, and where after I had to spend a lot of money to make sure my Turismo 270R could get the job done, we have now won our first championship of this game. And ultimately, I ironically drove almost 51 miles as a result of me doing that fair share of grinding. And well, I also figured I'd give this thing some usage, so, why not? Anyway, let's now move on to our next event, the Race of Natural Aspiration Sports. And where, after thinking long and hard about this, I've decided that I want to use the Chevy Silverado for this, because I have not driven a Chevrolet in this game yet. And also because, well, I reckon with it being a pickup truck, or just a truck in general, I figured why not. Also because, well, up until this point, if I can find it, yeah, here it is. I've not actually driven a Chevy up to this point in the game yet, and I figured I might as well change that now, so let's go. As we will now head over to the professional events, and where hopefully, if it's possible, I will not have a huge power disadvantage, or a huge speed disadvantage. So these are our regulations. The B license is required in order for us to enter. Restricted, of course, to engines of natural aspiration, and we can only use normal and or sport tyres. So, like most of the events in this game, we've got 5 races as we're heading to Sonoma, Apricot Hill, Twin Ring Motegi road course, so that's basically the full course, SS Route 5, and to end off on the forward course of Trial Mountain. So, without further ado, let's get on. So, as you can see here, I am now at the Chevrolet dealership, and ultimately the main reason for that as well because, well, last time my Chevy was acting like an asshole, and I figured it was because the truck itself was a bit heavy. So I'm going to put on some tuning parts here, just because I have a feeling I'm going to be doing this a lot more often than what I am currently doing it at. And I have a feeling this is something I need to do more frequently. So I'm going to put on stage 1 weight reduction, as it puts me down by nearly 700 kilos. And I think what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to put on the grippier sport tyres for this thing, because, well, this thing was just oversteering like crazy the last time I drove it, and I figured because of that something had to change. And I don't think we really need any power, but I will put on a racing chip just in case. I'm convinced in saying that power is not going to be needed by too much, so I'll put on little bits of it. I mean, this thing is heavy after all, so it's kind of expected for me to give this thing a bit more, well, what's the word? Response time. In other words, I'm just describing acceleration. And this here, you know what, I will put on the drive shaft, just to make my job a little easier. And hopefully that should be everything we need. I have the tyres, I have the suspension, and hopefully we have got all the tuning we need for this thing to hopefully not be quite as oversteery as it was before. So, heading back now to Race of Natural Aspiration Sports, which by the way is what NA is short for, and let's try and see if we can do better. Hopefully. Oh yeah, by the way, I did also reset the game, so these are technically the original opponents I was up against before. And because I really did not want to change my competition, well, I figured that was the best way to do it. So initially, I started off on the sport mediums, but of course I bought the sport softs. I figured, well, it was necessary to do a little bit of engine tuning just to give me a stronger shot of making it through the corners. Also put on the sports suspension as well. And you know what? I need to keep traction control on this thing, because there is clearly a lot more power here than what I am realistically capable of taming without the tyres to pull me through. So hopefully the tuning I have here will be enough for me to realistically put up a fight against the likes of both the Cobra as well as the C12. I have proven I can pass with this thing, but I'm also hopeful in saying that, okay, so it was 157 before, it's now dropped down to 83. So I'm convinced in saying I have made some right moves here, but it depends on knowing if it'll work or not. I did figure the one thing I was lacking before was acceleration. And since I have a bit more grip in the car this time, I think we should be okay. As I pass the Pontiac, and now passing the BMW, now have to find a way past the Audi S4 that is up ahead of me. I should also mention, in the Pro Series, these guys technically do have tuning parts fitted to their cars now compared to before. And I think it's fair to say at this point that I might have overdone it with the tuning, because I'm already up to second. And I'm basically making this look easy. So maybe the engine upgrade wasn't needed. It was probably just the tyres I needed. But I don't know. Anyway, I am behind the Mustang, making it so I am biding my time. I probably will get past him at some point in the next few kilometers, or if not then definitely through the hairpin, going round the outside. I don't think I clipped any cones, gone a little bit wide here, and still lacking a little bit of acceleration, but that's okay, because I still managed to take over the lead anyway, over the Mustang. And I think it is fair to say that we're definitely pulling away from the pack behind us. Still, I gotta say, scoring 7,500 credits here, that's actually quite a lot for this stage of the game, compared of course to the races I have been running before up to this point. And I know I should probably be used to it by now, but at this time at least, well, I'm still getting accustomed to it. Yeah, I'm convinced in saying that we did not need the additional engine power, because ultimately I am very much pulling away from my competition now at a rate of knots. So I think it's fair to say I've definitely made this too easy by putting on the fucking engine power increase. I probably didn't need it. I just needed more grip. And then it would have been fine. Yeah. Something tells me that was a mistake. Oh well. It's fine. And 7.5 seconds now over the Mustang. So, it's fair to say the only thing I really needed was more grip, not really more power. As the gap is now 8.4 seconds to the Ford Mustang here at Sonoma, as we head through the carousel now for the third and last time. And it looks as though this was probably too easy. For me, anyway. So, what I've learned from this is, when you need more grip, you don't necessarily need more power. And I think it's fair to say that up to this point, I definitely overdid it by increasing the power. Okay, well I just hit one cone, but I don't think that really matters because I don't get penalised for these things. So, it's fine. But anyway, there we go. Easy win at Sonoma. Hopefully the rest of the races will be just a little bit more exciting. And 9.6 seconds in the end over the Mustang. Oh hey, the BMW finished as well. Was not expecting that. Okay, so what I have learned here is, when you need more grip, you don't necessarily need more power. And I think that's more or less what this race proved. Because I think that win was a little bit too easy. Do I actually have a replay saved at Sonoma? I'll check. Oh, it doesn't look like it. Although I am prepared to look, just to be sure. And no, I don't. You know what, yeah, I'll save my replay here. At, Sonoma. Because why not? Okay, let's now move on to race 2 of this event. And the gap from first to fourth was nearly 15 seconds. And 11 seconds from first to third. Okay, let's move on. Time now for race 2, and where this time we have got a TVR Tamora along with a Mercedes CLK 55 AMG, a Acura NSX, and at the back we have the Mustang and the GTO. You know what? I think I'm gonna keep my engine tuning on because, well, Apricot Hill often does tend to be more competitive. I did think about taking it off, but I don't really think that would be a wise move, considering the competition that is up ahead of me. Also because, well, the Honda NSX, well, in this case the Acura NSX, it's pretty fast, to say the least. So, I did think about taking off the engine tuning, but because we're at Apricot Hill, and because the AI tend to run typically close here, I figured it was only in my best interests to keep the engine tuning on. I think if these two guys weren't here, I wouldn't have thought about doing this, but since they are here, I figured I might as well just keep on the tuning parts as a precaution. Because as you can see there is a gap between me and the NSX. And I don't think I would have been able to catch him had I taken off the tuning parts. Plus, I have got to admit, that TVR is pretty fast as well, so I've at least got to do what's best suited to the conditions. And well, because Apricot Hill, for the last few times at least, has often thrown me some rather competitive racing as of recent, or at least of the last few episodes, I figured it was only in my best interests to keep the tuning parts fitted. Because the AI, they're actually pretty strong around here. And it was only in my best interests to keep the engine parts fitted. Because I am having to push here to catch up to the TVR. And I don't think that's going to be the last time I see him. And darting up the inside, I do manage to pull it off. I really had to dart up the inside if I was going to get that maneuver done, but I do manage to take over the lead now. And as I said before, rubber banding, I'm convinced in saying, is pretty strong around here, so it's only in my best interests to become adaptable to the conditions of what I am facing. And up to this point, this race has been pretty close so far, because the gap is only a second to the TVR. So this is going to be an interesting finish, to say the least. Or at least I think it will be. I'm pulling away little by little, but not by much. So that definitely suggests to me that rubber banding is strong around here. And that's why the last two times I've raced here, I've basically been, well, I guess you could say encumbered by the closeness of what Apricot Hill has more or less given me up to this point. Because it has been a pretty close race. And as much as I really would have wanted to take the tuning parts off, because I noticed there were two different opponents that were faster than the Mustang in this race, it was only in my best interests to keep the parts themselves fitted. Something I wouldn't ordinarily do, but at the same time, if you consider the recent history of what I've had here, at this track in particular, regarding close finishes. You do kind of have to be prepared for that sort of thing. But either way, I still win. By 1.7 seconds in the end over the TVR, so pretty good race altogether. Not quite the barn-burning thrillers that I've had before, but definitely a close race for sure, in terms of the intervals. And we do get a lot of money from this, because we get a total of 37,500 credits altogether if we win all 5 races. And almost all of us finished, except for the Pontiac. So 1.8 seconds, more or less the gap to the TVR Tamura. Then the Acura NSX came home third, with the Merc CLK in fourth, the Mustang Cobra in fifth, and then at the back we had the Pontiac GTO. Yeah, I'm convinced in saying I don't really need my tuning parts anymore for this one. Because the competition we have is a Chevrolet Camaro SS, a Nissan 350Z, a Callaway C12, a Corvette Z06 C5, and a BMW M3. I don't think the engine parts are needed here anymore for this one. So I'm going to take these off. I don't really need the extra power, I just need the grip. Because grip makes it easier for me to control these things. So we got 2 Chevys, 1 Nissan, 1 Callaway, and 1 BMW M3. Alright, let's go. Hopefully we should be okay with this. And 163 points. I certainly don't know about this. But then again, the Corvette isn't up front, so maybe I'll be able to clear him early on. We'll just have to wait and see to be sure. I'm going to assume the only reason why it's at 163 is because the Corvette is in this race. I think as soon as I clear him, the rest of the race I should be fine. Okay, got a little bit of a disadvantage in terms of speed, but that's okay. And oh, shit. I suddenly don't know what to do anymore. Okay. Gotta clear this BMW. Okay. Now, I have to figure out how to clear the Corvette. And closing in on the 2 leaders. Have to shift down into first so I can get the maneuver done. That's precisely what I do. Yeah, I'm convinced in saying the only reason why it's 160 points is because the Corvette is in this race. I'm convinced in saying that if the Corvette was not in this race, then the overall number of points I would be scoring here would most likely be 100. If the Corvette wasn't here. I have a strong feeling that's the only reason why the points on offer is 163. And he doesn't seem to be passing the Callaway at the moment, so I'd assume he's just biding his time, but if the Corvette was up front, then this would have been a lot harder than what it actually is now. So, I think it's fair to say that we're very much Gucci here, from what I can see. But either way, sometimes you just have to keep it interesting, and that's what I try and do. I'm also convinced in saying the A-spec points, mathematically, we would get the most. Out of this race, if the Corvette wasn't present, we would probably be getting about, I'd say 110, if I was to make a pure and gratified guess. That's the amount of points I think we would get on offer if the Corvette was not in this race. But either way, I think the Nissan is giving me a reasonable battle. And I think it's fair to say that with me taking off my engine parts, it does actually make this more interesting. Of course, with my superior grip, it does also give me more speed through the corners. And for races like these... Oh, I did not mean to do that. That was totally an accident. That was completely unintentional, just to be clear. I got too hot into the corner. But either way, we can still continue our battle. And it is proving to be a pretty interesting battle altogether. And he's trying to force me around the outside. I probably did deserve that bump because I did bump him before heading into the right-hander. Again, as I said before, it was a total mistake, and in all honesty, I did stay behind him, so I'd say I treated him pretty well. Okay, move into the inside and go into throw the block. I get through the right-hander at about 44 miles an hour, which should be enough speed for me to secure the lead. And I gotta say, we've had a pretty ding-dong battle up to this point. So, it's fair to say things at this time are going well. And the Corvette is basically nowhere in sight, so I think it's obvious to say that up to this point, it's just me and the Nissan. Well, he is doing a good job of keeping up with me. He has not given up on this race just yet. However, I will throw the block on him, and he did have to get out of the slipstream there, so I'm convinced in saying that's handed this race over to me, because he had to get out of the gas. Supposedly because he had oversteer whilst he was on the straight. I'd assume that was his reason for backing out. But either way, I gotta say, pretty exciting race altogether. And I can definitely say it was not a secured win either. I really had to fight for this one. 1 second in the end over the Nissan 350Z. Then we had the Camaro in third, followed by the C12. Hey everyone, finished. That's cool. Still, I really had to fight for that one. There's no question in saying that the 350Z was definitely a worthy opponent. So, 1 second in the end over the Nissan 350Z, then we had the Chevy Camaro SS in third, virtually 9 seconds behind me, then the Callaway was fourth, followed by the Corvette in fifth, and the BMW M3 CSL came home in sixth, and last. I can definitely say taking off my engine parts made that race more interesting. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna put my engine parts back on again. It's not because I'm necessarily being a coward at this point. It's simply because, well, there is a Pagani in this race, and the other thing is we have a TVR Cerbera that is also in this race. And because I'm convinced in saying that speed might be a problem here, especially down that long front stretch, yeah, I kind of figured it was ideal for me to put the engine parts back on. Also, because if we win, we'll get 132 A-Spec points. So the competition is definitely hotted up here. And that's why I put the engine parts back on. Hopefully, I will have the speed to compete. Maybe not the weight to compete, but definitely the acceleration to compete. Because there is a reason why I bought these engine parts. And the 350Z was trying to go for a maneuver on the BMW. His attempts, unfortunately, were thwarted. But I do manage to pull off a double pass as I get through the chicane, and the Pagani is 4 seconds up the road from me. And I slammed into that wall pretty hard. But I'm convinced in saying that has not done any damage to me, so we should be okay. So, gotta find a way past this TVR as I shoot down the inside. I did of course have the inside line, so it was only appropriate for me to go for the slingshot. And now I've got to try and clear the Chevy. I go around his outside as we get through this right-hander here. And now all that's left is me and the Pagani. Who is going to win? I do not know. But one thing I can say for sure is the Zonda definitely has acceleration. And that's why I put my tuning parts back on. So 2.4 seconds is now the gap. Can I manage to close in on him in time? I certainly hope so. Went a little bit deep there through turn 1, but that's okay, as we now head through the chicane, and I think the gap is still 2 seconds at this point, so yeah, 2.1 seconds. So I'm slowly closing in. I'm definitely pulling him in. Probably a little bit too much time on the brakes there, but that's okay, because I'm now right behind the Pagani Zonda. And gap is now half a second. So I think it's fair to say that I'm definitely closing in on him. I'm now right behind him, so it's going to be interesting to see how this battle gets resolved. Especially since this technically is a case of quite literally sport truck versus supercar. So it'll be interesting to see how this one stacks up. So I'm in the slipstream. Can I get up to 160 before the braking zone? Only just. Even though it was probably too fast to make the corner, but either way, I hit 160 down the stretch. He's trying to pass me. I don't know where he is. He was right alongside me. We were literally tooth and nail for a moment there. You literally could not put a ruler between us, because that's how close we were. But I think I made the right call to put my engine parts back on, because it's definitely made this race more competitive than it would have been had I not put on the engine tuning parts. So I have a 1 second gap over the Pagani, and just got a few corners to go now, as well as the tunnel corner, which ends off the reverse lap. But altogether, the racing so far in the pro events, it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, sure, there have been some losses in between, but obviously, I'm still having fun with this. So it's fair to say it's definitely a more competitive market in terms of the AI, in terms of the AI being able to challenge me a bit more often. 1.1 seconds in the end over the Pagani. Then the TVR was third, followed by the 350Z. The Camaro was 5th, and at the back it was the M3. That actually felt really good. And everyone finished as well. Okay, on to the final race. Let's go. Alrighty then, final race of the race of NA Sports, and where for this race we have got a Chevrolet Corvette Z06, an Audi S4, an Acura NSX, a BMW M3, and the Ford Mustang Cobra. I don't know how to approach this, but I'm pretty convinced in saying that since the Corvette is now at the front of the field, yeah, I'm gonna keep my engine parts fitted. Even though I probably don't need them, but either way, I figured I'd just fit them anyway, just to, be cautious. And since I have traction control switched on for obvious reasons, well, it's fair to say that I've made some gutsy calls, but I can also say that most of them have been the right calls. So, passing both the Mustang and the BMW, the Mustang definitely appears to be trying to work his way through the field. I can definitely say there has been some serious competition up to this point of the Pro Series. And it looks as though I probably didn't need the engine tuning to be fitted on this thing, because already I am right behind the Corvette. I figured I had to be cautious, but I wasn't sure on how cautious. So you know what? I think I'm going to stay behind him for now, just because I want to see what he has. I think I'll just stay behind him for the end of this lap and then basically just blow his doors off for the rest of the lap. I mean, I score less than 100 points for winning this after all, so in all honesty, I think it's worth it for me to just basically hang fire and then basically just open fire once we get through the rest of this. Sometimes it can be important to basically hang back, and then once you feel like you're ready, you can then open fire. That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm basically just biding my time, trying to see if the Corvette has got any significant advantages over me. That's the only reason why at this time I'm hanging back. I could probably pass him, but at the same time, this race would not be quite as interesting, even though I am kind of forcing this on myself. But I figured it was at least necessary for me to wait a bit, stay behind him, and then basically just wait and see how long it is before I decide it's time to pull the maneuver off. I'm basically just hanging back at the moment. I think I'll wait until the third lap to pass him, because I do want to keep this interesting. So I think I'll wait until we get onto the straight for the last lap, and then that'll be where I pass him. I know this wasn't really interesting in terms of a pace setter per se, but I figured it was at least worth it for me to basically hang fire just to, keep this interesting. Plus, technically speaking, this is more or less a battle of the Chevys here, so from a technical standpoint, I'd much rather make a race like this interesting rather than just completely blow the doors off my opponent and then make it less interesting. I mean, after all, I am doing this for entertainment purposes, so sometimes you have to do something to make it look like it's a close battle. Also because, well, I want to actually see if the rest of the AI can actually finish this race like they did last time. Still, I can definitely say a lot of the racing up to this point has been pretty solid, to say the least. And a little bounce there at the chicane, but that's okay, because as I expected, I win pretty easily, even though, under the circumstances, I figured it was necessary to make it look more interesting. So 2 seconds over the Chevy, 3 seconds over the NSX, I think it was 10 seconds over the Mustang, and let's now collect our prize money. So we're now up to 182. So that's more or less where we were at before. So 2 seconds in the end over the Chevy Corvette Z06. Then we had the NSX in third. The Mustang finished in fourth. Yeah, he was 10 seconds behind me. 13 seconds behind was the Audi S4. And nearly 14 seconds behind me was the BMW M3. I know that wasn't really a competitive race altogether, but I figured it was at least necessary for me to basically make it look more interesting, because I like to do that from time to time. And hey, we get the Honda NSX Type R concept. I do really like this thing, by the way. I think this thing looks really cool, and I can definitely appreciate it for having the, I think that's supposed to be a carbon fiber hood or something. But either way, I just really like the way this thing looks. So there we go. The race of natural aspiration sports is now done. Feel the exhilaration of pushing it to the red line and growing excitement as the pitch of the exhaust rises. So there we go. That's now 3 pro events down. And next up will be the race of turbo sports. Or as it says there, turbo sports cars. That is what we'll be doing next. So let's go and check it out. And we gained, I think that's 0.7% of progress, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so we're now up to 15% of progress, and here is the car we just won. The Honda NSX R Concept. And we cannot sell this thing for anything because it's a concept car. I'm pretty sure I have made that point enough times for you to understand. But there we go. In Championship White, the Honda NSX R Concept is the car we win from Race of NA Sports. Okay, cool. And my win ratio is now up to 87.9%. Not bad. Anyway. Next up, Race of Turbo Sports.